Well, hello and thank you, Matt. And hello, everyone. I'm Dovi. I'm co-founder and COO of Qii78. My co-founder and CEO, Dan, apologizes that he can't be with us as he has a prior family engagement. Qii78 is the key for brands to enable consumer-powered recycling. It's a new comm channel being deployed through the recycling of consumer packaged goods, addressing ESG actions and sustainable development goals, budgets, whilst tackling the $441 billion consumer packaging waste problem. It's very apparent that brands are nearly completely blind on recycling data. There's no system in place for brands to track their products' recycled status, and even more shockingly, brands don't know who is consuming or recycling their products. Additionally, very little is actually being done to incentivize people to recycle. And all of this creates a trust gap between brands and consumers that we're looking to fill. We're creating a direct and quantifiable link, the Qii78 digital on-pack recycling mark, between dollars spent by brands on their sustainable development goals and the volume of their recycled products. A live ticker feed on brands' own websites via our API displays real-time data of recycled products so that brands do indeed meet their sustainable development goals. The consumer-led activation of a circular economy allows brands to track recycling status and through last-mile engagement, build loyalty, trust, and fun for purchases that don't create waste. Our solution tracks recycled waste, incentivizes and rewards recyclers, and is brands' last-mile interaction for next purchase influence. Established recycle hubs and bins can be identified through GPS, and similarly, people will be able to set up recycle bins at home, work, or even in the community. The consumer scans the product, activates the bin, and disposes, and then their reward is delivered. Qii78 is a new recycling mark. Whilst this space remains somewhat uncontested, it's not to say that there's no direct competition. Creative agencies and brands can create their own in-house solutions, and QR technology providers could up their game and deploy similar systems to compete against us. By the same token, established recycling hubs and hotspots could pivot their business models to be more in line with Qii78. Though do note that Qii78's platform and mark is so disruptive that people will be able to recycle with ease at places of work and in their homes anywhere in the world. We're introducing our solution to food and beverage brands and to supermarket own label brands. Our business model incorporates subscription packages direct to brands and promotion packages through third-party ad agencies. And whilst brands are building up their data sets, we're building much larger data sets of profile of recycler, product recycled, and the place in which it was recycled. We're bootstrapped and at pre-seed, though much has been validated. Our tech has been incognito for the last couple of years in the whiskey industry, ironing out the bugs and glitches, and we're talking to brands and introducing them to Qii78. And we've been fortunate enough to develop an amazing team, one which I am particularly humbled by their humility and their genius. It's always nice to actually work with people that you think are just better than you. We are seeking to raise $500,000 to start us on our journey and allow us to build out our technology solution and brand, making products, people, and the planet better through a digitized mark of respect and trust. Thank you, I'm done.
Oh, okay. You still got a minute if you want to do anything. Otherwise,
well, I'll open it up for the questions because I can see from a lot of people have significantly better traction. We have kind of been on a journey for the last 15 months, and what started out as one thing has led to something else, which pivoted to something else. And we kind of found this, kind of the inspiration came from the fact that brands do not communicate with consumers, they communicate with customers. And kind of the two great examples that I love to give, if you have a piece of white paper and you draw a black dot in the middle, everyone will comment on the black dot and ignore all the space around that black dot. And it's similar to the mother that goes to the shop and she buys that box of Cocoa Pops. she's one purchaser, but there are many people that engage with that box. And it's about being able to create this comm channel between consumer and brand. And what we realized is that if you go in at the end of the market, if you go into that moment where people are actually disposing of it and forgetting about it, it's at that moment that you can actually offer people the ability to buy more, to engage with them more, to give them something more. And so we then kind of did those deep dives and read those academic papers, some of which are referenced in the deck and some which I can talk about ad nauseam. But essentially, you've got the unknown of who is recycling, what is recycling, but beyond that, people are not incentivized to do so. And studies were conducted to demonstrate that when incentivization takes place for recycling, two things occur. More people recycle and more products are recycled. So incentivization is definitely a massive draw factor to get people to do things. Now, what's happening at the moment is that people are incentivizing, but very, very limitedly so. They're either incentivizing people by saying, if you bring this glass bottle to this bank, then we may give you 5 cents in return. But you're then limited to the amount of bottles you can bring, when the store is open, how many times a week you can actually go and dispose of it. So we then started to pivot that, to try to encompass what it is we really want to achieve, which is that brand to consumer communication, offering that last mile influence, which will reward the recycler, benefit the brand, and ultimately benefit the planet.
And where are you at today then in terms of the status of that?
The status we're at today is we've got our ducks in order for us to be able to go to market within 4 months beyond funding. We need the funding to be able to pull the tech out from the incognito mode and develop it with our own IP. We have started already speaking to brands to introduce them to the concept and to introduce them to the solution. We're in the process now of working with them to get those letters of intent and letters of intention to come on board as customers. We've got the different teams that we need in place, initially quite skeletal teams, but teams in place to drive those sales in the particular markets, and also work with municipalities to be able to actually, GPS locate some of those recycle bins. We could actually do a little bit more guerrilla marketing from that perspective, where we could actually go around and attach some sort of key to those bins, with obviously with the approval of the municipalities. But where we're at the moment is we're chugging along in order to be able to get that funding, to be able to build the tech, to be able to deploy.
Thanks, Arvin. I guess my question was around how do you avoid fraud, right? Because you have an incentive to just get the reward without actually recycling it properly. And how do you make sure that they actually recycle it right? Because the purity of the material streams is obviously important for recyclability. So do you have a mechanism in place? I guess you mentioned a GPS location or tags. How do you do that?
So every key that is produced is actually individuated. Kind of the key itself, it comes from the inspiration of the platinum atom, which is my background. But what we do is that through the API, every single product is individuated, and therefore every single key that is created is individuated and independent. When that key is scanned, the location of the recycling bin needs to either be scanned, meaning there's a static key that's in place on those bins, or they are part of the system that's already been pre-generated through the GPS to locate that recycling point. Now, we will know through a scan, through the automation, if one recycles, for example, a glass bottle and tries to deposit in a paper bin, it's not going to recognize it's not going to recognize the product for the bin. So what you essentially need to do is first, there are two scans or two identifiers that need to take place. You've got the scanning of the product itself, and then you've got either the scanning of the bin or the location of the bin. But the beauty of it is that with simple household goods, where we know that, and I use the UK as an example only because that's where I'm from and I have the most experience in terms of recycling. It's very different in Israel because I actually have to go to recycle, whereas in the UK it's collected for recycle.
Yeah.
But you know, you have the ability, for example, through the GPS, kind of through the gamification in inverted commas of recycling, for people in their street to identify each of their recycle bin as a pointed recycle bin. So yes, there is always the possibility that somebody's going to try to cheat the system, but bear in mind they are kind of, their profile is registered within the system to be able to recycle product at a particular point of recycling.
Sorry, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Please do.
But still, I have the location of the product. I can just scan every bottle 20 times and then throw in one bottle.
Every bottle 20 times against one particular location.
Exactly. Like
well, you can only recycle one bottle once. You can recycle 20 bottles at one location, but you wouldn't be able to recycle one bottle 20 times over because one bottle can only be recycled once.
Because the code actually identifies that individual product, not the category.
Because every code is individuated.
Ah, okay. So it's not on the product level, but on the it's on the product level, not on the.
It's on a product level. So kind of if we fast forward 3 years down the line, in terms of the scope for Qii beyond the recycling, we're able, if God forbid, you know, kind of there's a poison that is found in a particular tub of yogurt, we're actually able to go back to the actual individual tub of yogurt and work out from there, as opposed to just clear 100,000 tubs of yogurt, because on the safe side, we need to do that.
And thank you. No, I understood. Who's paying you? How much?
Who are our customers?
Yeah, exactly. How much are they paying? Because I guess you can get your supermarkets or retailers, but also the municipalities to pay you for your service. So
again, this is kind of a pivot of a pivot, and we're on this journey. This is very much the focus what we're doing today. Pardon me. At the moment, we have no customers. At the moment, we are pre-MVP, we're pre-POC. Having said that, we're using the data that we've accumulated from the incognito mode and applying it conceptually to what we're doing. Who our customers will be, we're looking at food and beverage companies, we're looking at supermarket own labels, those companies, pardon me, those companies that are having much more regular print runs of packages. It's much easier for us to deploy programs with them quicker than it would be the larger brands that are, you know, doing print runs every 6 months, or as opposed to print runs every 2 months. But it's not limited to food and beverage. It can be on any single consumer packaged goods. So whether it's shoe boxes, whether it's you know, plastic flower holders, whether it's even, you know, what Lara was talking about in terms of the pregnancy testing, all of these things are currently either being disposed of poorly or being disposed of within certain limitations. What we're kind of opening up is to allow people to the freedom of the recycling within a trusted environment. But yes, the municipalities may well want to have kind of pilots being conducted through them. Those are some of the conversations we're having now with my local municipality here. So we're trying to work kind of a pilot scheme through guerrilla marketing, kind of totally bootstrapped, of how we're going to be able to actually get some sort of key on, let's say, a coffee cup with a bin in that store specifically for that, and gauge that type of engagement.
How does this compare to like a deposit refund system? Because a lot of countries already have that for most Or in the EU are implementing those?
So we have deposit refund systems here in Israel. They're very tiresome. Also, you're very limited to.
Why is it
time of day.
tiresome?
It's tiresome because you have to always bring your bottles to that place, as opposed to setting up a recycle bin at home, which is then collected, or which you can then, as one unit, go and drop off as at a deposit place, where you don't have to go one by one by one by one.
But you don't, are you not still scanning one by one by one by one?
Initially you are, but you're getting the reward for one by one by one by one. What's happening with the depositories is that, number one, you're limited in terms of time. Number two, you're limited in terms of number. So you can't take, if you have a party on a Saturday and you've got 70 bottles of beer left over, it's a big party. But if you've got those 70 bottles of beer, you can't take those 70 bottles of beer to a depository and deposit them all in one go. At least not here.
You can't leave them at home. You can't leave them at home and deposit them in one go either, unless it's a really big container, right?
I'm thinking back to kind of home recycle bins, which are identified as recycle bins, and they are quite big.
And there are startups as well that now work on solutions like crushing those.
Yeah, there are startups that do crushing, but then you need a special device, and if you're installing like Mass Loop's device at home, then
no, you can't do that at home. But I'm thinking back more to, I'm trying to juggle what I've experienced in Hong Kong, in the UK, and in Israel. Like, for example, in Hong Kong, there are kind of those recycle hubs, but you need to have a minimum of 2 kilograms. You need to go to a particular place that is going to take those particular materials. It's quite limited.
Yeah,
like,
so I have a question. So there's one kind of key piece of info missing, I think, that I'm not getting. So there are a few different startups, at least here in Europe, trying to tackle this problem. You're right, there's kind of different deposit return schemes, and it's typically done through like having retrofitting existing bins, the kind of applying a certain kind of device onto them, or kind of having separate bins for specific purposes, like crushing glass, for example. So this retrofitting bins, both or the special bins, there is a way to verify whether, even if you scan the glass bottle, for example, it is a glass bottle.
Yes.
And then you can only input a glass bottle in it. You can't input anything else. Whereas
Yes.
with those home bins, who's actually responsible for verifying that? Because I can see, kind of, even if you sign a lot of different recyclers for a lot of those different things that you can recycle at home, if they end up, saying that 50% of the bins have wrong items in them, I mean, the whole kind of trust.
The whole operation falls apart.
Yeah.
Okay, so in short, on the one hand, you have the static established recycle bins, and then you have what is classified in the UK broad home recycling bins, where pretty much anything apart from plastic bags can be recycled. They can be deposited within them, and then they are taken by the central recycling municipality system. However, an idea which we thought of is targeting, again, going after that low-hanging fruit of the supermarket own brands, and kind of online grocery shopping and local deliveries is becoming more and more and more, and visiting supermarkets is becoming less and less and less. So what's happening is that people are actually buying their groceries, they're being delivered to their house, they're being unloaded from the lorry, from the truck, and then all of a sudden what happens is that you have this empty space in the truck. Well, the brands, supermarkets that are delivering can actually collect the recycled waste, which has already been prepared by the customer. You've already got that ecosystem in place of the brand having that link with the supermarket having that link with the customer, and therefore the customer is able to get their rewards and incentives through their own kind of club card system. So I order my Tesco shop and my Tesco shop's delivered, but I've actually got my Lenore fabric conditioner box ready for collection, along with the eggs, my box of eggs and my Kellogg's cornflake box ready for collection, and they've all been scanned, and I've got my reward, and I know that Tesco have actually picked it up and delivered it and taken it away for recycling, then kind of Bob's your uncle, and it's a very easy solution to implement. So yes, again, at the moment, it's not, we haven't yet deployed, so I can't give you all the veritable answers vis-a-vis, well, this will definitely not occur, because there's always scope for somebody to try to cheat the system or try to put the wrong product in the wrong bin. But what we do know is that through our coding, we're able to, number one, every single product is individuated, going back to that. So we know if that product is being printed on a glass bottle or on a packet of cornflakes, and therefore we know whether or not that packet is going to be accepted in the bin that one wants to recycle it. It's like if I decide to throw a banana, if I walk past a recycle bin and I throw a banana into the recycle bin, I've just thrown a banana into the recycle bin. But if I'm going around and I'm saying I want to scan this banana to throw into the recycle bin, well, it won't be accepted. It's not to say that somebody won't then do it, but you're not going to receive the reward. So there's no benefit for the consumer other than to actually get rid of the rubbish that they're carrying.
I think I want to cut to the chase a little bit. I find that you will have to define the MVP very carefully. Brand definitely wants the information where the packaging ends up, and there are companies that is able to implement these at scale, such as those companies that are developing the robot sorting, so they can see, package, and recognize, package, and aggregate the actual number of package that actually go to recycles. So those are typical the people who can really get the right information to the brand, because they know exactly where the plastic bottle ends up. And there are also startup companies that are developing their own container, addressing like cafeteria network and things like that. So the cafeteria would charge the consumer extra for the containers. And then when the customer bring back to the recycle, then they get paid. And then this startup company set up a centralized facility to wash the package, re-sanitize, and then bring it back. And they are able to scale very quickly within a year. And, you know, so I think you have a lot of ideas in terms of how you want to develop the hardware, the specific individualized barcode for container, and then go ahead and develop the hardware for the bin, for the sorting. But all these are very, very big. I think you have to figure out what the right MVP you can tackle everything. I don't think it's that easy. You have to raise massive amount of money to really instrument the home recycling bin for sorting, or the retail, the grocery. I think those are too big. I think you have to narrow down to find out your MVP. What's the fastest way for you to actually have the product and have the customer buy in that are differentiated from others? So that would be my suggestion.
Mm-hmm. And making less is better than making more. If every person has to have their own lawnmower, everyone gets a shitty lawnmower. If all the neighbors pool together to get one nice lawnmower, you can ride and finish mowing in half the time. So it's like if everyone has to put in an expensive or complicated or climate and carbon intensive recycling device into their home, they don't need to
do that. They don't need to do that. Starting off in terms of where we initially intend to deploy, it's within communities where recycling is established, where recycling bins and even home bins are established, where recycling in the office is established. What we're doing is that we're making it easier for them to do so and reward them for doing so.